9 out of 10 professionals never make it into leadership. Not because they lack ability, but because they never learn to think strategically. And that is the skill that executives value most when deciding who's going to move up. Strategic thinking is exactly what took me from answering phones to becoming an executive in just 4 years, and it's gotten my clients results like this. So in this video, I'm going to show you what mental models to use to think strategically, exactly how to apply them in practice at work, and how to use them to build credibility with executives fast. So earlier in my career, I was rejected for this promotional opportunity 4 times. And then to top it off, they gave the role to someone else in the department and then asked me to train him because he didn't have the correct skills or experience. So I resigned. I told the VP that my performance was exceeding expectation, and yet someone else with less experience and output always seemed to get the opportunities that I wanted, and this was just absolutely unfair. And that's when he explained to me that the biggest mistake I was making was that believing that being good at my job is what would get me recognized and rewarded. But executives don't reward performance, they reward potential. And if I kept trying to get promoted by working harder and getting better at my job, then I was going to continue to watch less experienced people move ahead of me. But once I started being more strategic, I built credibility and recognition with executives, and their sponsorship allowed me to jump several grades within a couple of years. So now I'm going to show you how you can be more strategic in a way that is going to build real authority with leadership. And there's 3 things you need to do. They're the highest impact things you can do to become more strategic, and these are the things that have been working really well for my clients. Now, point number 1. So the first thing is going to make executives naturally listen to you and trust you with bigger decisions, even if you don't have the formal authority yet. So whenever I'm in meetings, I can always tell who the more senior professional is without ever knowing anyone's titles. And it's because of the way that they ask questions. Now, most professionals ask questions like this. When is it due? Who's handling that part? Do we have the data for this? And those are what are called operational questions. So the problem with them is they show a lack of ownership because you're letting someone else own the decision. You've positioned yourself as an executor, but not a leader. And that is not going to signal potential. Instead, what you want to aim to do is ask strategic questions, which show that you can think beyond your lane and connect decisions to the bigger picture. So a strategic question is one of 3 things. The first thing is outcome focused, which means it links the effort to a clear business result. For example, how will this impact revenue, retention, or cost? The next is prioritization driven. It helps clarify what truly matters. For example, if we could only do one thing this quarter, what would move the needle the most? And the third type is called the risk or trade-off oriented. It shows that you're thinking ahead. For example, what are we saying no to if we choose to do this? And when you start asking those kind of questions, executives will stop seeing you as just someone who delivers tasks, and they will start seeing you as someone who's got the ability to lead. Because the fastest way to stand out to leadership is to start thinking like it. And if you want more practical advice that you can apply in your very next meeting, then I share advice and templates and tips weekly. I'll send it straight to your inbox and you can sign up with the link below. Now, point number 2, and this one will stop you putting in hundreds of hours every month that just go completely unnoticed. And this is a technique that I still use today in executive boardrooms when millions of dollars are on the line. And it even won me an award for a strategy project. And it's a technique that I like to call linking. So what it does is really simple. It will stop leadership from overlooking your hard work because it will force them to recognize it, because now your work is going to be linked directly to one of their priorities. And when your work matches their priority, then your career becomes a priority. So I'll show you how to use linking. Right, so the biggest problem smart professionals make is thinking that strategy means complexity. So they expect that if they don't have massive plans, juggling all sorts of work and directing effort, then that's not strategy. But that's the mindset that I want you to avoid, because strategy just means effectively delivering outcomes. And that's where linking comes in. So first, what you need to do is find out what leadership actually cares about right now, And then you connect your result to that every time you talk about your work. For example, let's say you improved a process that used to take 10 hours a week. What you don't say is, I made this process faster. Instead, what you say is, I helped free up 10 hours a week that now goes into revenue generating work, directly supporting our growth target. This shows leadership that you're strategic because now you're responsible for a result that they care about instead of the person who helped someone else get that result because you did all the busy work. Because in the eyes of leadership, value isn't in what you do, it's in what you drive. And now, point three, and this is where most people fail, because they think they can't be strategic if their job doesn't actually involve it. But when you do this next step, you're going to stop sounding like an employee and start sounding like a decision maker, even if you haven't actually got the job title yet. So Shri came to me asking for help because he just completed a performance review and he was told that he needed to be more strategic. And he was really frustrated by this because how are you supposed to be more strategic when your role doesn't involve planning and you don't really have the authority to make the decisions? What I helped Shri understand was the next level of your career is not going to be written in your current job description. And what this means is, in order to move up, you have to step beyond your job description, which means that you don't do more of the same work. What you need to do is different work. So how do you do that? Well, whenever Shri was in a meeting, he would share tons of information because he thought that this showed he was strategic, because it demonstrated to the executives that he knew his stuff. But here's the problem with that. Information is what's known as an enablement, which means it helps other people make decisions, but it's not going to connect you to that result. There's plenty of research showing that leaders promote the people tied to the result, not the ones who actually made it possible behind the scenes. So once Shri stopped giving information and started delivering insights, he got invited to higher level discussions and eventually got promoted into one of those strategic roles he thought was out of reach. So instead of providing information, to be more strategic, you ask yourself these three questions to turn information into insight. And we begin with the question, what does it mean? Then, why does it matter? And then, what should we do next? For example, customer churn is up 7% year on year. Now, that's just a piece of information, but to be more strategic, you need to run it through those three questions. So, what does it mean? Well, more customers are leaving than last year, and that trend is accelerating rather than stabilizing. And now, why does it matter? Well, churn directly erodes revenue faster than new acquisition can replace it. And if we can't control it, we're effectively growing backwards. Finally, what should we do about it? Well, identify which segments are driving the increase and prioritize retention intervention activity where the impact will be the highest. Now, you turn all that into a strategic insight. So you would say something like, customer churn is up 7% year on year, which means we're losing revenue faster than our acquisition pipeline can realistically offset. The rise is connected to a few segments, so the next step is to target retention interventions there before this turns into a structural decline. You see, leaders don't remember who shared data, they remember who changed the direction of a decision. But professionals always make the mistake of providing too much information when they're trying to be strategic. And this is going to wreck their credibility with executives because it makes the executives think that if you don't know what's important, then why should we trust you? So go and watch this video next, and I'll show you how to communicate effectively with executives in a way that's going to build your authority and recognition too.